Welcome. I'd like to invite all of you and share my appreciation for you joining us today in our virtual book launch. We were scheduled to come to you in January. I had a little COVID issue, and so we had to reschedule, and we're glad that you made time in your calendar to join us today. We're here today really for a celebration. Did you know I published a book? Did you know it was available? That's right. Yes, we have a few things that might give you the hint about that.
Yes.
But I really do appreciate you joining us today. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Wendy McGowan Ellis. And I will tell you that you will recognize her voice because she is also my partner and hostess on the podcast that we deliver. And I really couldn't do it without you, Wendy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
it's an honor. It's an honor. So yes, today is a celebration of years of hard work on Marsha's part, culminating in this book. But before we kind of really get going with the program today, Marsha wants to thank the team.
I do. I have a small and mighty team, and they work with me on everything. Many of these names you'll know. You may get to see their faces for the first time. So I do want to do a short introduction for each of them. And so first we have Natalie Hollingsworth. Yay. Natalie has been with me for over 10 years, and anyone who knows me knows you can't get to me without going through this lady right here. She is not only the keeper of my calendar, but she is our air traffic controller who makes sure all the planes are taking off and landing safely. So thank you. Yes. Next we have Misty Moore, who has worked for me for over 7 years. And, you know, I often refer to Misty and Natalie as my right hand and my left hand. So Misty is the person who does all of the work around getting classes ready, materials developed, assessments back and forth to make sure everybody gets their reports, things are done on time. And they're interchangeable parts. So, that, you know, that's what a good team is we cover for each other, we support each other. And the next person I'd like to introduce, for anyone who's known me for any amount of time, is my son, Brent Clark. Yay! So Brent was here in the very beginning and helped launch the business almost 23 years ago, which is in and of itself a little wow in my mind. And Brent went off after a while to start his own business in the real estate world. He has come back to join the team because we have a lot of stuff going on, and he provides the technical support, the website design, and he's the best son a mother could ever hope for, just as an aside. And last but certainly not least, I want to introduce Tracy Shipman. And Tracy, I have known since my early EDS days. We've known each other 30-something years. We were both very young when it all started. Tracy, I wanted her to be here with us today because for those of you who have listened to our podcast, in addition to being part of the team that created Power Self, she has taught every single piece of the Power of Self, not only here in the United States, but in the Philippines as well. So those of you who are watching from Manila, you will know Tracy. I also want to tell you, though, that as a part of, we've all been in a learning process for the last several months, and Tracy is the person who produces all of our show notes. So when you listen to our podcast, the person who writes out the scripts, decides what questions we're going to ask, who literally helps me find my voice and represent the material from the book, as well as added material. Again, you'll know that if you've read the book and listened to the podcast, there's more on the podcast. So we hope that's a tease as well. But Tracy, thank you. You and I go back a long way in many, many shapes and forms. So thank you all. So join me as I thank our, again, small and mighty team. We work with each other in ways that are beyond compare. So thank you all very much.
Absolutely. Yes. So, now that we have team introductions out of the way, let's start at the beginning. Okay. Your background, and then we'll segue into how to the Power of Self program, and then how the book came to fruition.
Yeah. So, you know, Wendy, it does go back at least 23 years in the making. My background, for those of you who don't know me, I have had my own business for the last almost 23 years, doing work in the leadership and executive development area. And I've delivered that primarily through executive coaching and through programs, long-term programs, some short-term programs. And by adding the book and the podcast, we have another avenue by which we can deliver the material.
Exactly.
And yet the material itself it was not hard to write this book, let me just say.
Right.
Because we had been delivering this material for so long, it was a matter
20 plus years.
20 plus years. It was a
Yes.
matter of getting it out of my head, into my arm, into my
Yes.
hand.
Onto the legal pad.
Onto the legal pad.
Onto the legal
That's
pad. It
right.
did not go into a
No.
Word doc.
No, I found that maybe it shows my age, but it was the literal longhand writing of the book. It was the right rhythm and allowed me to formulate my words so that I could share those with you. And it really does go back 23 years ago in the living room of my home with a group of women who we took the art off the wall and we were putting sticky notes up for everything that we could possibly do to support women. Long-term programs, short-term programs, lunch and learns, angel investing, all of that. And of course we said, write a book. Of
course.
And so, at the time it was Oprah's Book Club. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
that was the goal.
that was the goal.
That was the
if you
goal.
wrote a book, you wanted it to be on Oprah because she gave everybody a copy, and then
right.
everybody else wanted to go read it. So I laughingly said I was caught up in the moment and the excitement as well, and yet what I knew is that, and I said it at the time, I think we need to do something before we can write a book.
Yes. Yes.
So what we've done, therefore, is to have 20 years of history, and not only my stories, not only what the research shares with us, but the stories of many women. I've taught and delivered training in over 40 countries, and we've had women from over 60 countries in our program.
Wow.
And so coming through the Power of Self, a year-long program that we delivered for 20 years, it was a public program that brought women together from all different kinds of industries, companies, organizations. We've had government, military, ministers, poets, authors, dancers. It's been a beautiful array of wonderful, wonderful women for 20 years. And I got questions a lot of, where were you when I was 25 years old?
Yes.
When are you going to write a book? Can I have my daughter come talk to you?
Right.
My sister, my mother, my niece, my godmother, my neighbor. And, the word that came to me, Wendy, was accessibility.
Exactly.
So I wanted to create something that could be available in sort of the anytime, anywhere, whenever I needed it.
Portable.
Portable, that's right, on your device or whatever. And so, that's how the book actually came to be. It took me, in reality, about 8 months to write it. And then what happened is that we sent it to the publisher. It was ready to be printed. And, of course, it was in 2020, and there were a few things going on in 2020.
Kind of. Just a little.
We all know the words global pandemic and supply chain issues go hand in hand.
Issues.
So
yes.
it came out a little bit later than what we planned.
That's
but
all right.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Here
And
we
so, for those of you watching us, I want to share, because Marsha knows how to set a goal. I want to set her goals. I want to share with you guys what her goals are for the book and for other things that are going on in her world. So number one, she wants to have 25,000 books sold. For all of you watching, buy a book. There's that. Number two, she's committed to 5 in-house programs in organizations who are committed to supporting women and seeing women advance. I love that. Number 3, her goal is 10,000 podcast downloads by the first anniversary of the podcast. And because I'm her podcast producer and also her co-host, we launched Marsha's podcast on September 22nd last year. She already has over 6,000 downloads. So we've decided to up the ante and make a goal of 20,000 downloads for her podcast before September 22nd of this year. So, Marsha, tell us where you are along the way of
Yes.
these other goals.
Well, Wendy is my hostess with the mostest. I could not do this without her. I picked up the number 25,000 out of the air.
Right.
I just made that number up. I don't know. One of the things I've learned in this process is the publishers told me that people buy your book based on the cover and the title. People keep buying your book based on the content. And so what I want to share with you is we hope you like the cover. We hope you like the title. And yet the 25,000, I didn't put a time frame on it because I hope people continue to buy this book for a long time to come. And so we have sold almost 3,000 books in 3 months, and we're pretty happy with that and progress that we've made against that goal.
Absolutely. It's an amazing accomplishment. I mean, for however many books are published, the numbers of only selling under 100 books are the majority of books that are published out there. Yeah. And I know, again, I'm going to say this at the end of the show as a reminder, but it's Mother's Day coming up, it's graduations coming up, and so for the young women in your life, this is an amazing gift to give them, to empower them towards their future.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, I am pleased with the 3,000 books that we've sold. And
it's just going up every day. I mean, that is a running total. We literally had to update that number before we started streaming this morning.
Yeah, and the idea about in-house programs for organizations that are really committed to supporting women, advancing women. This idea of more women at the table, women having more influence in the world, those are the organizations I want to work with. I don't want to do the checklist, okay, we can now say we've done a women's leadership program, so we have met our diversity, targets. Not about that. I want to do real work with real women, rich, deep work. We bring research to the table, we bring anecdotal stories to the table, empirical data to the table, and language and stories. Women learn through stories, and that's the way I wrote the book, and that's the way we try to do our podcast, is we share stories. We have guests come on and share their stories, and it's that combination. We often refer to it as a container, as something where you can come and feel psychologically safe, you can feel accepted, you can feel cared for, supported, and loved. And that's what we try to do with our programs. It's what we've tried to convey in our books. So the other piece is the podcast downloads. So brand new podcast. Right. I will tell you that we did not have a sticky note on my wall because podcasts didn't exist way back 23 years ago. And so that's been a new thing that we've added and started. And I didn't know how to set goals. I'm reading all the time on how to measure because I think even that's evolving as a way of thinking about what success looks like.
Yes.
But the podcast, and they are ever increasing. The bar charts are going up, which is always nice month over month. But we have had just shy of 6,000 downloads against a 10,000 goal. That was our initial goal. And as you said, we have now bumped that because we want to continue doing podcasts as well.
Exactly. So speaking of guests, I want to mention 2 other things for those who are watching. Marsha has been asked to be a guest on 3 different podcasts so far. So that's amazing and an accomplishment in itself. But she also has had guests on her show. So I know you want to give some special thanks to some people.
There are quite a few people, not only from the guests that have been on our show, but the people who have contributed to the programs and the books and all along the way with that. And so I have them listed here. So if I look down, it's because I got to read the names and I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. So I want to start with Drs. Dennis and Michelle Reyna. We have been partners in the entire 23-year time frame from the program starting, and Dennis Reyna has been a guest on one of our podcasts, and they've studied the topic of trust, which we know is fundamental to interpersonal relationships and foundational to sustaining and growing and supporting relationships. So they have been tremendous partners. Also, we have worked with the founder of Imposter Phenomena. Most women have heard of Imposter Phenomena. May not know what it is, but know that sometimes we feel like one. So we work with the original researchers and founders of the Imposter Phenomena work, Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes, and they've been tremendous supporters and teachers to us on what all of that means. And then I also want to shout out to LaRue Epler, who actually wrote the chapter in the book on intuition. And I met her several years ago. She wasn't there in the very beginning of the programs. What she brought was we've all heard about women's intuition. She's brought what I would consider to be the science part of that, and helps us know how to trust our intuition, because that's really a source of our power as well. And so LaRue Epler on the intuition chapter in the book. And then Dr. Patricia Heim. And Dr. Heim has studied gender differences for over 40 years, and we've included some of her material in the book. I looked for a long time to find a body of work or a body of research that really wasn't about gender bashing or male bashing or any of that stuff. It was really about just identifying what the differences are and how men think and operate and speak and approach new situations and so on. And so from that standpoint, Dr. Heim's work really fit well and nicely into our work. And so you may remember the titles of Invisible Rules or Invisible Differences, and that's the work of Dr. Heim. And then Dr. Marlene Miller, who was, again, one of the original founders and researchers in Brain Styles, and that's around our decision making. And when you can work with the people who initiated the research, who did the research, who codified the research, who made assessment tools to advance the work and learning around the research. These are amazing people to know, to work with, to continue to learn and work with. And then last but certainly not least is my dear friend Dottie Gandy. And she was my co-author in the first book, Choose, which is hard to believe it was written in 2004. And that was my first foray into any kind of writing. And it was great to have Dottie as a partner. And she too has been both a participant in the program and a graduate of the program, and has been a colleague in many activities and efforts since then.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to point out that while we are live streaming here from the Dallas area at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, I want to underscore Marsha's tagline, which is "Here's to Women Supporting Women," and what that means globally. So I want to hit this from two aspects. Number one, what do you mean by women supporting women? And then also, I know that you like to listen to things with what you call a global ear. So let's talk about that as well.
So you know that we end every one of our podcasts with "Here's to Women Supporting Women." Many of my emails are also wrapped up with a "Here's to Women Supporting Women." So first and foremost, I want women to have a seat at the table, right? Whatever table that might be. It could be a board table, an executive team table, whatever leadership role. It could be at the family table, the church table, the community table. And it's about supporting women's vision, supporting women's own individual definition of what success looks like. I don't have any preconceived notions, and certainly there's no research that bears out that every leader has to be exactly the same.
Right.
So from the standpoint of the authenticity part is really about you being your best self. So playing to your strengths, understanding your talents, expanding your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your education, and so on. And so women supporting women is getting behind women where they are and not trying to make women something that they're not. That individual and authentic place. The second is supporting women by buying from women-owned businesses. Yeah, if the
basics.
The checkbook matters.
That's right. The money where your mouth is.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So in buying, whether it's a lawyer, a dentist, a doctor, an accountant, whatever it may be, women-owned shops and so on and so forth, and helping women to continue to build business capabilities and, again, have influence in communities and in the business world. And then, what I would say is the other is women do a lot, or many of the women that I work with want to do a lot around philanthropic causes. So even when I think about what boards I sit, nonprofit boards I sit on, what foundations or philanthropic contributions I make, where I might volunteer and so on, it's around women and girls. And if you've seen any of our hashtags on any of our, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook postings or whatever, it's hashtag value women and girls, because we know in this global world, this audience that we're talking to today, and the work that we've done, there are some universal stories about no matter what country, no matter what age, no matter what race, ethnicity, generation, or whatever, that there are some universal truths around all of that. And no matter where I go, some things are true, and then there are unique situations based on where the country culture may have evolved. And so this idea of us being able to support women in a variety of ways. So
Right.
whether it's giving money to women entrepreneurs in emerging third world countries, whether it is working to stop sex trafficking, sex slavery, often, not always, but often in women and young girls, we're here to help change that.
Yeah.
And so that's the work I also support.
That's amazing. Amazing. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. And with executing, pushing out to the world the podcast space for 6 months now, with that, and also with Marsha's book launch on January 4th of this year, she's received quite a bit of feedback from those of you who are watching and those of you who are listening in the future. And so we've got some questions. Okay. So we're going to title this section, We've Been Asked, or yes. Marsha's Been Asked. So I'm going to put forth a few questions here. Okay. All right. The first one is, what was your process for writing the book?
Yeah, so I carved out a long weekend because Dottie and I wrote our book in a weekend. It was only about 80 pages. This one's over 350, so a little different.
Right, a little different project.
But I approached it the same way.
Right.
So got this, weekend getaway at the lake and all that kind of stuff. And I pounded out about probably 20% of the book using my laptop and, kind of getting, again, thoughts outlined and on paper and sort of the brain dump, if you will.
Okay.
And that was actually in the summer of 19.
Wow.
And then business got busy. And,
right.
I downsized in my home and, all kinds of things were happening at that time. So it kind of got put on the back burner.
Okay.
And then COVID comes along. Well, now I have more time.
Look at that. An opportunity.
The silver lining in
That's right.
what could be considered a very dark cloud. But, instead of going out to dinner every night or going weekend, whatevers, that all got shut down. So what I did, and again with the help of Natalie and Misty and Brent, was how do I carve out the time to sit down and really begin to write? Mm-hmm. So I went from laptop thinking I'm not going as fast as I want to because I'm trying to correct as I go. Right. Oh,
that's a good
nonverb
point.
agreement. Did I put the comma in the right
that's
place?
That's right. Right. No editing while writing.
Yeah. And so then I tried recording because I'm a talker. Y'all know me that. Who know me know that. And that didn't work either because it was like, oh, erase that. Oh, no, restart here. And I thought, whoever is going to transcribe this, thinks I'm nuts.
Yes.
And so then I got my pen and paper.
Okay.
So I love you, Erin Stewart, because you gave me a beautiful pen and you gave me these beautiful tablets. You left them on my front porch and said when she learned I was going to be doing this, and that is the paper and the pen with which the book was written.
Wow.
And so again, just carved out the time and got it all written and done. We promised another one of my clients, Jackson Walker, and participant in the program, Shannon Teicher, she helped me find a publisher. So this is so many perfect examples of women supporting women in a wide variety of ways. So I picked out the publisher, got to know them, and had many meetings, as you can imagine, worked through all of the ifs, ands, and wherefores and the terms and conditions of the contract. And I learned a lot about the editing process. So I'd love to share this because people tell me they find it interesting. It was fascinating to me as I was going through it. So your first edit is a content or substantive edit of, do you need to tell a story here? Do you need to have another chapter? Do you need to, this isn't quite clear to me. Should this go here or there? And all of that. So that took a little bit of time. The second was getting permission from all of the people who had contributed to it. So getting all the legal documents and approvals and that we could use.
Yes.
And
because there's a lot, I'm going to interrupt you. There's a lot of worksheets, workbooks, questions, templates, like proprietary information from other people who you've partnered with over the course of the Power of Self program. Right. And so all of that had to be signed off.
It did. And I also want to say that is a woman's way of doing it. We're collaborators, right?
Exactly.
So if there was good information out there, I didn't think I had to recreate something. We used the great work that was available and partnered in many ways. But we had to get people's permission to do so. So that was the second edit. The third was, where do those templates and checklists and exercises and reflection questions get placed.
Yeah.
So we had to put those in all the right place, and I had to review that and say, yes, that's a good place. That's a good break for the narrative here and the narrative there. And then the fourth was really the only edit that I had ever considered, which is, did you dot all the I's? Did you cross all the T's? Did you put
Is
the commas?
period
That's
there?
right. Is
That's
this a comma or a semicolon?
Yeah.
All of that.
Did I spell everyone's name correctly?
Yes, that was a big deal too.
Yes.
And so we submitted to the publisher on August 20th, and we were ready to launch the book in October, and that's when all the supply chain issues, and then it went to November, and then, as Wendy said earlier, it was published on January 4th.
Yes. All right, so second question. And you may have answered this already, but what was the hardest part about writing this book?
So, I have taught most of this content for over 20 years. So the hardest part, and again, I talk in conversation tone. I don't write academic books. I don't write, literary essays.
Yes.
I write like I talk.
Yes.
And so the hardest part was cleaning that up a little bit. And you'll also notice I do a lot with my hands. And so, when I would be teaching, I'd say, like, okay, here is the line, or, this is the hierarchical structure. This is we're all in this together. How do you translate that into words with clarity? And, even like we do on the podcast, Wendy, I'll say, okay, envision, right? My hands are, my fists are clenched. They are, horizontal and bumping each other. I mean, we tried to create some of that visual imagery when we couldn't, use hand gestures,
exactly.
if you will, from the
Otherwise,
book.
the whole book would have been full of Marsha's sign
That's right.
language.
All of that.
Air traffic controller.
That's right.
Okay, so that was the hardest part.
Yes.
How does it feel to be an Amazon bestseller?
It feels really good.
That's amazing.
I mean,
so good. 4 months.
Well, we did it in 4 days. So
okay, tell this story.
Okay, all right. So we do have to tell this story. So, thank you for all the pre-orders.
Yes. Yes.
That's one thing. So here's something that I've learned about the publishing process. First of all, your book gets put into a category because who knew, but Amazon carries over 33 million book titles.
Wow.
That
Okay,
in and of
didn't know
itself
that.
was a little interesting tidbit.
That's a big warehouse.
So when they told me, and all of this gets changed all the time because Amazon and the New York Times bestseller list, they don't really want you to know exactly how they choose it because then you game the system, okay? So what we learned in this process is that if your book, so you assign it to a category, and the two that I have been identified as a bestseller in are women in business and coaching and mentoring. So if your book is in the top 100 for sales, just even if it's for an hour, you get bestseller status.
Wow.
Amazon bestseller status.
Okay.
So we were in that category for several days. So almost immediately and then for 4 days running. So that's how you get identified as an Amazon bestseller. Well, I said, well, really, the top 100, that doesn't sound very elite and very, very high level.
How many books are out there?
Well, but that's where I learned some of this. And I learned that there are 5.5 million books in the same categories as mine.
Wow.
And so then I kind of go, okay, well, top 100, yay, kind of thing. And so then the other thing I want to tell you, so, people are starting to give the star reviews, and please do give us star reviews if you've read it.
They
and
matter.
leave us your comments and all that kind of thing, because that goes into all the algorithms as well. But I had gotten all 5s, and then of course, like most women, I had 1 4, and it's like, well, what do you think? And
1 4,
Well,
and she's freaking.
I know. Well, all right. I'm a high achiever, and all that. So here's what was funny though. So you read the words, and they were as glowing as all the 5s, right? So I go back to the publisher and I say, well, what do you got to do to get a 5? Because it was one of the early ones, and she said, Marsha, of all those, 33 million books, and even in the 5.5 million, the average Gold Star rating is a 2.8.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I'm 4.8. Okay, yay.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know and haven't read the book, we're we're pretty doggone good.
That's right. We're super excited about all this.
That's right. So all the signals and signs, because look, I will share with all of you, and you've heard, those of you who know me have heard me say this always. I want this book and I want our podcast to be a valuable resource to you in your leadership library, in your life library, in your coaching library, your mentoring library, whatever it may be. Because if it's not useful to you, then I got work to do, right? I mean, I want to do more around all of that.
Okay. All right. So useful. I love that.
Yes.
That's segueing into my next question, which is, are there more books to be written?
Yes. So, what I want to tell you is this is the first of 3 books, okay? The year-long Power of Self program, of which you are a graduate,
Yes.
is 19 days in length.
Yes.
And so the first book is sessions 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So it's focused on self-awareness and interpersonal skills or relationships.
Right.
So the second book is going to be called Extending Your Power, a woman's opportunity to inspire teams and influence organizations. So it's going to represent, here's the self-awareness, here's the interpersonal. The second book is going to represent managing and leading teams and group dynamics, and then being influential and being at the table in organizations.
Okay.
So with that, we'll have the content and the same, reflection questions, exercises, templates, checklists, roadmaps, all of that. And then the third book is going to be Enriching Your Power.
Okay.
A woman's choice to lift others up. So it's going to be a book on how women support women, how women continue to advance the cause. When I think about...
Almost like a legacy book.
It is a legacy book.
Okay.
It is a legacy
That's
book.
beautiful.
And when I think about all the shoulders of the women who have come before us, whether it is the right to vote or, women's rights in the workplace or, being paid fairly.
Right.
Credit.
Credit.
Yes, all of those things. I know we're standing on broad shoulders, and I want this to be yet another example of inspiring stories to help women say, it's not just about me, it's about me helping others in meaningful ways.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay. And final question in the lightning round is, will you continue delivering the podcast?
And I'm going to say, will you continue partnering with me?
Of course.
Yeah, so this is one of those two. So did you know, Wendy, you probably do since this is your line of work, but the typical podcast is only 10 to 12 episodes.
Yes, I did know that.
Yes.
People love to quit.
They love to quit, or they run out of things to say.
They run out of things to say.
And I love that we have already 60 or 62, I think, that we've identified as topical areas.
Yes.
Now, you're going to tell me because I always forget.
That's okay. This week, so today's Tuesday, tomorrow, episode 30 drops. It's another On the Nightstand, which is amazing. It's where Marcia does a book review and tells us what she's gotten out of a particular book. So that drops tomorrow. But yeah, we've identified 60 plus topics, which will definitely get us through next fall.
Through this book.
And through this book.
Yes. So we are going to continue this because we are getting the feedback that it's useful and that, especially whether it be for young women. And even for those of you even that have gone through the program, we want... I've heard booster shots.
Yes.
This is like a booster.
Yes. It's like a refresher course.
A refresher, and it's all in one place.
Right.
So it's not a 3-ring binder, and if I have it on my Kindle or my Audible or whatever, then it's even easier for me to transport. So we have all of that going on in relationship to the existing podcasts that we've identified, and we want to bring you information. And oh, by the way, if you have a book to recommend, I try to look. The On the Nightstand is going to happen once a quarter, and it is. I love to read, so I'm reading all the time, and I do want to showcase other people's books. I try to choose those that are about women, written by women, is another way of supporting women in both a financial and a highlight showcase visibility way. And so if you've got books you want to recommend, I've always laughingly said that my students are my research department because I get articles, I get TED Talks, I get, books, I get all of that. And so keep them coming. I love that very much. And it is a way for us to continue to stay current and relevant.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
more podcasts to come, my
More
friend.
podcasts to come. Well, I'm watching our time, and you and I have we've kind of blown through our little script here. Is there
Yes.
anything ad hoc that we're totally blowing our screen people behind the cameras right now? But is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience? Because we've got a lot of time here, and
Well, I don't. Here's what I tell my coaching clients when we get all their questions answered in time. I say, look, I'm going to give you back time. It's the greatest gift of all. So I don't
There's
feel
that.
I don't feel compelled. I don't feel compelled to fill up an hour if we don't have an hour's worth of good information. We have covered the objectives. We're going to wrap up here in just a moment with a little bit more of a celebration. But what I would say to each and every one of our listeners, and whether you are watching this in a live streaming way or you go to LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and if you haven't been able to join us live, I do want this book to be valuable. I want it to be a resource in your library. I want it to be relevant, timely, rich, deep, to help you be your best authentic self. And again, there's no one definition or profile. It's whatever you choose it to be. And I also want you all to know that we are a resource to you. So it's not just me, it's not just Wendy, it's not just my small and mighty team that works together. It is really about being a larger community of women. I believe the world would be a better place if we had women at the table.
yes.
And, Roz Dawson Thompson, who just recently retired from the executive director, CEO role at Texas Women's Foundation, she has a great saying, and she says, when you get a seat at that table as a woman, scoot over, pull up another chair for another woman. And I hope that this book inspires us all, educates us in the spirit of know better and do better. I want us to be all that we can be, and I want us to help every other
Yes.
girl, woman. And by the way, this book is very valuable for men. The men who have read this book tell me, oh my gosh,
Yes.
now I understand this and this and this and this. And the leadership principles are true no matter what your gender, but it does describe what it's like to work with and for and around women. So I think from that standpoint, it will be useful for far beyond the female audience. And if there's something you're looking for that you can't find, let us know that, and we'll do our best to find it for you.
Exactly. Pardon me. Exactly. And we will include that content in the podcast.
Yes.
So I'm getting some waving of hands for us to promote the podcast yet again, which is Your Authentic Path to Powerful Leadership with Marsha Clark. There it is. We're on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all of the places. Everywhere you like to listen to a podcast, please listen to it. But before we do our champagne toast with the team, I just want to, because it's been right here in front of me the whole time, I would just want to read a couple of sentences from the back of the book as a reinforcement for everything that Marsha has said today. This book is about leadership. Notice it didn't say women's leadership. This book is about leadership, not leadership that's founded on the base of a title, a business card, or a box in an organization chart. It is about leadership as a mindset spanning all aspects of our lives, personal and professional. And so I just want to give Marsha my own public kudos and hugs and all the things for putting everything that I got to go through in a 9-month program into a portable place and into a portable place on the podcast also. And the fact that the program is reinforced by this medium, and then also further reinforced by this medium as a place where we can come back and reconnect with Marsha whenever we want to. And I think that's what's the most amazing about you taking your learnings and your teachings and putting them across all of these platforms.
Yeah.
So
congratulations.
congratulations.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
It is humbling. I have to tell you, even as we're getting ready for this, I just think about all the new and different things we've done over the last couple of years, and yet we learn and we grow and we tweak and we improve and we do all of those kinds of things. And before we bring in our final celebration, I do want you to know what resources are available to you. So executive coaching and programming continues. So those aren't going away, and it's not just me. I've got a whole team of associates that work with me to deliver when we've got those kinds of demands and requests, and we tag those up with the right person with the right requirement or need. Do buy our book. Do buy my book. I hope you do find it as a useful resource. Listen to the podcast, as Wendy talked about, and you now know how to access that. We drop a new one every Wednesday. You can find the prompt and the links on either Facebook or LinkedIn. And then I also want to, we haven't said anything about this. So,
this is the newest product.
We've got some product. Many of you have said, and this sounds silly for me, a little embarrassing to even talk about, but you refer often to the Marcia-isms because I have a lot of one-liners for a lot of things. And
they're a tool.
They're a tool, and they're a way of remembering new behaviors, new ways of thinking, prompts, cues. And so what we did, and I'm going to give a shout out to both my son Brent and my granddaughter Georgia, who using the Canva app created some of these things and really got us thinking about this as a way of communicating and delivering the one-liner Marcia-isms, everything from what else could be true to there is no accountability without consequences to we teach people how to treat us, things that you'll recognize.
Refrigerator magnets.
Refrigerator magnets.
Who doesn't love a refrigerator magnet?
Yes, or any metal stand, that you can have in your workplace area. But these are available. There's 4 sets of them that you can also find on my website. I also want to say, if you want an autographed copy of the book,
there you go.
You can send me a note on my website there at the bottom of the screen, and I'm happy. Just tell me who I'm writing it to, and if you want to tell me something about them, I'll personalize my message for them. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
And as Wendy said, Mother's Day, graduations, of high school, college, whatever, and in that attempt to say where were you when I was younger, going into my first leadership role, my first professional role, or whatever. So we want to help you out in all those ways.
Exactly. I think it's time for champagne.
I'm ready.
Yes. All right. Let's bring in the team.
All right. The team that you met earlier is going to come back in with us.
Yes.
And
we've got some champers.
That's
ready.
Right. That's right. All right. Look at there.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Oh, mine is super full.
It is.
They all are. And I'm probably going to gulp mine down after that. So I again, team. We are a great team. We work with one another in ways that are beyond compare.
Yes.
I could not do it without each and every one of you over and over and over again. And so I hope you'll join me as we toast not only this team, the book, and all that is. So here's to embracing your power.
Embracing your power.
All right.
Yay.
Yay.
Cheers.
Cheers to all.